Donald Trump's rhetoric about Canada becoming the 51st state has stirred up a patriotic fervor in this country, the likes of which is rarely seen outside of Olympic hockey tournaments. Much has been written about the ensuing Elbows Up movement, including a new collection of essays, interviews, stories, and artwork. Here to talk about Canada is not the 51st effing state. Everyday Canadians face off against Donald Trump's worst idea ever, is editor and publisher John Hughes. Welcome.
Thanks, John.
Now, I usually open with a question about what inspired the book, but I think we covered that off well enough already. Perhaps the better question to ask here is how did Canada is not the 51st effing state come together?
Well, as soon as I guess it was February 1st when these tariffs were announced, and it was in conjunction with a lot of talk about the 51st state, which had preceded that and continued after that. I just kind of thought I need to do something, need to absolutely do something here with this. And being a small bookstore and a small publisher, I thought, let's use this platform. Let's make this matter. And so I don't know if it's okay to show this, but I'm going to anyway. Here's the cover. I don't know how visible that is. I'm a little fuzzy. I'll get you cover at some other point. Um, but yeah, so what I ended up doing was posting on social media to try and get contributors. I talked to various people that I knew who might be interested, and we got a great cross section of people. We have a doctor, we have an Indigenous artist, we have a school teacher, we have various other writers, a retired soldier, all who are interested in maintaining our sovereignty, and they tell the story from their perspective about Canada's worthiness and about how we need to maintain that 49th parallel and not make that shift and to guard it with all we're worth.
How do you go about curating a collection like this? You mentioned a number of everyday Canadian perspectives there. How does the final cut how's the final cut determined?
There were a number of submissions that I worked with a number of authors and offered suggestions on some of their works, and sometimes they panned out and sometimes they didn't. It's a bit of a process of going through a number of edits. I think a lot of these papers were done with people who were not professional writers, and so that required. But there was a golden nugget in there that I had to dig for, and between myself and each individual writer, we're able to pull that out. Now, some were our professional writers who turned in stuff that was closer to ready to go at sort of at deadline time. There are some interviews in there that were just magic from the get-go. And so I guess there's no cut and paste method of determining how the final drafts were going to look. It definitely varied from contributor to contributor. And not to mention, or not to leave out rather, the artwork, which is toward the tail end of the book. So it's 11 essays and some artwork from a local artist who was keen to include their work in this.
Now, other than the whole 51st state thing, is there a common thread that runs through all of them, a sort of sense of authenticity or a unifying spirit?
Thematically, yes. I mean, in terms of the authenticity, I think you're going to find that on every single page here. There's nothing contrived about it. And some of the themes which come up, even in papers that don't deal specifically with it, you find Canadian healthcare, you find Canadian education, you find Indigenous rights, you find gun control as important factors in almost all of these papers. And so what that looks like on the printed page varies from writer to writer, but I think it's pretty clear that it comes out as something that is genuine, heartfelt, and there's fear, but there's also a willingness to be steadfast in guarding these pieces of Canada, or Canada as a whole, but identifying portions of it that are specifically worth holding on to, while also showing that, hey, we're not perfect and we've got a lot of work to do, but that work is our business, and that comes up a fair bit as well.
Now, you're the editor, the publisher, and also a contributor. What is your piece about?
Well, I mean, how did I put it? I mean, I think I started with a discussion about um, Trump's aggression against Canada, sort of his aggression generally, talking about his cozying up to Putin. his attack on Vladimir Zelensky. This idea that, hey, we've got two nuclear armed powers in close proximity, and there's no sort of guarantee that the Canadian Arctic won't be carved up at some point. I live in fear of that. Since the day of the election, since Trump was elected, I've been very scared of this possibility. Now, so I kind of outline that, and then I sort of move into the idea of the 51st state. And it's like, well, look, if you've got these realities happening internationally, and we're having this 51st threat issued to us on the regular, this is something that is worth being wary of, to say the very least. But then my own paper sort of goes into my experiences in Canada versus experiences in the States. I lived in the States for 3 years in Louisiana. And so, well, it's not something that is wanting to throw uh, shade or disrespect on the United States in general. It is definitely a paper that shows, hey, this is my experience in Canada. This is the experience in the United States. Let's make sure that we keep these two things separate here, because the Canadian experience is worth preserving. It's worth being it's worth making sure that continued generations are able to have that experience. I kind of conclude it with a discussion like, are we able ever to um, mend fences with the United States? Well, possibly. That would take some time. We're not there. We're not even close. We're just trying to maintain our sovereignty at this point. And so I think that's the basic of the paper that I've put into the introduction there.
Do you think it may be just as simple as having a different occupant in the White House?
No, because even if we get somebody who is coming across saying, hey, you know what? Say 2028 happens and we've got, I don't know, Kamala Harris or somebody else who is friendlier to Canadians wanting to mend fences and make nice. How do we know that they're not going to be out of office in 2032 and JD Vance or Rubio is in, or one of these acolytes from the Trump administration? No, I mean, to me, this is a permanent set of damages which have been done. And there's no going back at this point. We have to guard and make sure we can make nice to a degree, but in terms of letting our guard down, I think that ship has sailed.
Now, in your materials, you state that Canada is not the 51st effing state, aims to, quote, embolden Canadians to use all cultural and political resources to withstand Trump's onslaught of aggression. So, having said all that, what do you hope the reader gets out of the book?
What I hope is that people become active, and whether they are simply cooking Canadian food for other Canadians, finding better ways to welcome immigrants to this amazing country, to find personally how somebody can be active in making the 94 calls to action and truth and reconciliation a reality. That is crucially important. How do we protect Canadian uh, environment? All of these things. These are questions that I think individuals need to ask themselves and find out whether it's something they can get involved in on a personal, community, political, provincial, etc. level, and dig in and do that. Now is the time to find out where your spot as a Canadian is, and be as Canadian and as active and as wary as possible about this orange menace to the south.
Is this a blessing in disguise to remind us of our Canadianness, for lack of a better word?
That is, John, a very good question. I don't I can't in any there is no world where Donald Trump is a blessing. I just can't go there.
Oh, not
Uh,
so much that, but just the sort of unifying effect of all this, in the spirit of you don't know what you got till it's gone or till it is being threatened to be gone.
I mean, if it lights a fire under us and gets us moving in a direction that is less complacent and is more Canadian and is kinder, I mean, if we can look at what's happening in the United States and see a lot of the unkindness happening against minority people, people who don't have a straight sexuality. That kind of bigotry is not something we want in Canada. That sort of thing is completely off limits up here. Um, at least I would like it to be. I mean, I suppose there's some minority voices out there who would try to take me down on that. But no, I mean, the bigotry that we see that has been made okay from the White House, we don't want that in Canada at all. And so if we can turn that on its head and just say, hey, let's be kind Canadians to the best of our ability, then maybe you're right, John. Maybe there is some kind of benefit there that causes us to look in the mirror a little more closely and see how can we be better as Canadians.
There is a book launch on Saturday at your store, Groovecat Books in New Westminster. What can folks expect?
Well, there are going to be 6 or 7 of the contributors there, and they're all going to speak to their portion of the book. We'll have some light refreshments and a bit of a mixer after the reception at 2 o'clock. We will also, and I'm not going to give it all away. We're going to have a communication to Donald Trump directly from the shop. So anybody interested, come on down and check that out. It should make for an interesting time.
The name of the book is Canada is Not the 51st Effing State. Everyday Canadians face off against Donald Trump's worst idea ever. It is published by Cosmic Cranium Press. My thanks to editor, publisher, and contributor John Hughes.